The rain fell hard on the streets of New Seoul as Tae-sung walked slowly toward the small cafe. His left leg hurt like it always did when the weather changed. The doctors told him the pain would go away after some time, but 7 years had passed since the war and it still hurt. The metal leg worked fine, but his body remembered everything that happened during the Battle of Proxima Ridge. His friend Jae-ho had set up this blind date. Jae-ho kept saying that Tae-sung needed to start living again, not just surviving. Tae-sung said no many times, but Jae-ho never stopped asking. Finally, Tae-sung agreed to meet this woman. What could go wrong in one evening? He reached the cafe early. Old habits from his soldier days made him want to see everything around him. He picked a corner table where he could watch the door. The cafe was small and quiet, the kind of place that served real coffee, not the fake stuff. Old music played softly from the speakers. The door opened at exactly 7 o'clock. Tae-sung looked up and stopped breathing. The woman who walked in was very tall, maybe 7 feet. She was thin but looked very strong under her clothes. But her clothes were terrible, just torn pieces of fabric that barely covered her body. Her skin was a strange blue-silver color that seemed to shine in the light. Her eyes were golden yellow, bright like an animal's eyes in the dark. Most people in the cafe looked away quickly. Some people whispered to each other. One couple stood up and left. Tae-sung knew what she was. She was Lycan, one of the new alien species in the Galactic Union. Humans called them werewolves because they could change their shape, becoming more like giant wolves. Many humans feared them because they were different and strong. The woman's ears were pointed and moved like a dog's ears. They turned as she looked around the room. When she saw Tae-sung, she walked toward him very carefully, like she was trying to look smaller and less scary. "You are Tae-sung." Her voice was deep and beautiful with a low growl underneath. "Yes, that's me," he said, standing up and holding out his hand. "And you must be Hiram." She looked at his hand for a long time before taking it. Her hand was rough and very warm. "I am sorry for how I look," she said quietly. Her ears went flat against her head, and Tae-sung somehow knew this meant she felt ashamed. "I did not have good clothes. The refugee center could only give me these old rags. Please sit," Tae-sung said gently, pointing to the seat. "Would you like to eat something? The beef stew here is very good." Hiram's eyes went wide. She looked surprised. "You do not want to leave? Why would I leave? I am not what you thought I would be. I can smell that your friend lied to you. He did not tell you I was Lycan. Most humans are afraid of us. They hate us." Tae-sung sat back and looked at her carefully. During the war, he had fought with many different alien species. He watched them die for a cause that was not even theirs at first. He learned that being brave and kind had nothing to do with what species you were. "I fought in the Proxima campaign," he said. 3rd Battalion Mixed Species Unit. I had a Lycan brother-in-arms named Dong-hyun. He saved my life 2 times before he died at Ridge 7. So no, Hiram, I am not afraid of your people. I respect them very much. For the first time since walking into the cafe, Hiram relaxed a little. Her tail, which Tae-sung had not noticed before, moved once under the table. "Dong-hyun," she said softly. "That is a strong name." "Did he die with honor?" "He died so 17 other soldiers could live. Human, Lycan, Trevelyan, it did not matter to him. He just wanted to save them." Something changed in Hiram's face. Her golden eyes became brighter. "Then he rests well in the hunt beyond. And you carry his memory." Every single day, the waitress came over. She looked nervous when she saw Hiram, but kept walking forward. Tae-sung ordered 2 bowls of beef stew with extra meat and hot tea. When the waitress left, he turned back to Hiram. "Tell me about yourself. How did you end up in New Seoul?" Slowly, carefully, Hiram started to talk. She told him she had been a scout and hunter for her pack on a planet called Lyros Prime. When the Vakral swarm attacked their planet, her pack fought with everything they had. They used their teeth, their claws, and old weapons that had been in their families for many generations. "We held them back for 37 days, she said. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook a little around her teacup. "The swarm wanted our planet for the minerals under the ice. They did not care that it was our home. They did not care that our children were still in the dens." Tae-sung listened. He had his own terrible memories of the swarm. The way they made clicking sounds, their blood that burned like acid, how they ate everything living and left nothing behind. On the 38th day, human ships came. "Your 3rd Fleet, led by Admiral Park Young-ho," Hiram said. Her ears pointed forward. "They broke through the swarm's blockade and saved 12,000 of my people. But my mate," she stopped talking. Pain showed on her face. My mate stayed behind with other fighters. He stayed so the children could reach the ship safely. I am very sorry, Taesung said quietly. He died with honor. That is what matters. But her voice broke a little when she said the word honor, and Taesung could see she was lying to herself. She still hurt very badly. He understood that feeling. He carried the same kind of pain. The stew arrived. Hiram stared at the bowl like it might disappear. Her nose moved as she smelled the food. Taesung suddenly understood that she was probably starving. The refugee centers never gave enough food, especially for someone her size. Please eat, he said. She did not need to be told twice. Hiram ate the food quickly but carefully, using the bread to soak up every drop. Taesung ate slowly and watched her. He felt angry, not at her but at the system that made this woman so desperate for food. She was skilled and strong and a survivor, but the system treated her like trash. When she finished, Hiram looked up. She looked embarrassed. I am sorry. I have not eaten in 3 days. Do not apologize. Not ever. Taesung called the waitress and ordered 2 more bowls and extra meat. You are hungry. There is no shame in that. You are kind, Hiram said softly. Much more kind than I expected. What did you expect? Rejection, disgust, maybe pity at best. She looked into his eyes. That is what I have gotten since coming here. Even from people who say they want to help refugees. They give charity but not respect. They help but make me feel small. Taesung nodded slowly. He had seen the same thing with disabled veterans. People felt sorry for them but could not hide their discomfort. They treated veterans like broken toys, not like whole people who had simply been changed by war. I know about that, he said. After I lost my leg, people looked at me differently. Like I was fragile, like I might break if they talked too loud. Hiram tilted her head and studied him. But you are not fragile. No, and neither are you. Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding. Recognition. 2 people with scars seeing each other clearly, for maybe the first time in years. The second round of food came, and they ate together without talking. Outside, the rain got heavier, making sounds against the windows that reminded Taesung of distant bombs. He pushed the memory away and focused on now, on this moment, on this woman, on this unexpected connection. When they finished eating, they talked for 2 more hours. Hiram told him about her work as a star mapper, how she tracked the migration of giant ice whales on her home planet. Her whole face changed when she talked about her work. Her ears pointed forward, her tail moved with excitement, her eyes got brighter. Taesung found himself completely interested in everything she said. He had not felt this alive since before the war. You are brilliant, he said when she stopped talking. The Cartography Guild are idiots for not hiring you immediately. Hiram's ears went flat again, but this time it looked like pleasure, not shame. You really think so? I know so. I have a friend named Jiwoo. She works at the Terraform Corps. They always need stellar cartographers. Would you like me to introduce you? Hiram stared at him like he had offered her the moon itself. You would do that for me? Why would I not? Because we just met. Because I am nothing to you. You are a person who deserves a chance, Taesung said firmly. You have skills that should not be wasted. And because I want to see you again, and I would prefer if you were not starving next time. Hiram stopped breathing. Her tail went completely still. You want to see me again? Even knowing what I am? I know exactly what you are, Taesung said gently. You are a survivor, a skilled professional, a woman who has been dealt terrible cards but who has not given up. He smiled. Also, you are the first person in 3 years who has not treated me like a broken toy. So yes, Hiram, I very much want to see you again. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached across the table and put her hand over his. Her palm was still warm, still rough, but the gesture was incredibly gentle. I would like that, she whispered. I would like that very much. The interview with Jiwoo happened very fast. Taesung's friend was always quick with her work. She scheduled a meeting for the next week. She even got Hiram a temporary pass so she could use the Terraform Corps library to prepare. Taesung picked up Hiram from the refugee center on the morning of the interview. She was waiting outside wearing the same torn clothes, but she had tried hard to look nice. Her fur was brushed carefully, her claws were filed smooth, and she had tied her hair back with a piece of cloth. Here, Taesung said, holding out a bag. I thought you might need this. Inside was a simple but good outfit, a tunic and pants in dark blue made to fit her tall body. He had spent the night before looking for a special shop that made clothes for non-human species. He wanted her to walk into that interview with dignity. Hiram stared at the clothes, then at him. Her eyes looked wet. "You did not have to do this. I wanted to," he said simply. "Now go change. We have an interview to win." The Terraform Core building was big and made of glass and steel. As they walked inside, Tae-sung noticed people staring at Hiram. Some looked curious, some looked nervous, a few looked openly hostile. She kept her head up and her shoulders back, moving with grace even though she was clearly tense. Ji-woo met them in the lobby. She was a short woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. Her hair was cut short in a practical style. When she saw Hiram, her face lit up with real interest. "You must be Hiram. Tae-sung told me about your background. I have to say, your experience with gravitational navigation is exactly what we need." She held out her hand without any hesitation. "I am Park Ji-woo, Senior Engineering Director." Hiram shook her hand carefully, clearly surprised by the warm greeting. "Thank you for seeing me, Director Park. Call me Ji-woo. And thank you for coming. Honestly, when Tae-sung described your work with the ice whale migrations, I knew I had to meet you. That kind of understanding of gravitational systems is very rare." The interview lasted 2 hours. Tae-sung waited in the lobby trying to work on his tablet but mostly just feeling anxious. He found himself deeply invested in how this would turn out. When had Hiram's success become so important to his own happiness? When they finally came out, Ji-woo was talking excitedly while Hiram looked shocked. "You can start Monday if you want. The position comes with normal salary, health coverage, and housing help. We have several team members from other worlds, so we already have accommodations for non-human needs." Ji-woo turned to Tae-sung. "She is incredible. You undersold her, if anything." "I told you," Tae-sung said, grinning. After Ji-woo went back to her office, Hiram stood frozen in the lobby. Her tail hung limp, her ears were flat, but this time not from shame. "From shock. I have a job," she whispered. "A real job. With a salary and housing." "You deserve it," Tae-sung said warmly. "You earned it with your skills and knowledge." "No." Hiram turned to him, her golden eyes fierce. "You did this. You believed in me when no one else would. You opened a door that I could not open myself. I just made an introduction. Everything after that was you." She shook her head slowly, then did something completely unexpected. She dropped to one knee, putting her fist over her heart. Tae-sung recognized it as a likened gesture of deep respect. "Tae-sung of Earth, you have given me back my honor, my purpose. In my culture, such a debt cannot be easily repaid. I offer you my oath. I am pact-bound to you from this day until you release me or death takes us." "Hiram, stand up," Tae-sung said, alarmed. Several people in the lobby were staring. "You do not owe me anything. I owe you everything," but she stood, her expression serious. "You do not understand what you have done. For months I have been nothing, invisible, a burden. You made me visible again. You reminded me that I am more than my losses." Tae-sung felt his throat get tight. He understood that feeling very well. The sense of being erased, of losing who you were. The war had done that to him. Only through years of painful work had he found himself again. "Then let's call it even," he said quietly. "Because you have done the same for me." Hiram tilted her head, confused. "How?" "I have given you nothing. You gave me a reason to look forward instead of back. You reminded me what it feels like to care about someone else's success." He smiled a little. "For 3 years I have been just going through the motions. Work, sleep, physical therapy, repeat. Nothing excited me. Nothing mattered. But this week I have felt more alive than I have since the war ended." Understanding appeared in Hiram's eyes. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took his hand. "Then we are pact-bound by choice, not debt." "Yes, yes," Tae-sung agreed. "Pact-bound." They walked out of the building together, holding hands into the afternoon sunlight. For the first time since the war, Tae-sung felt real hope in his chest. Not just survival, but hope for a real future. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a comfortable pattern. Hiram threw herself into her work with the intensity of someone who had been starving and was now offered a feast. She learned the human computer systems in days, then started suggesting improvements based on lichen navigation techniques. Ji-woo said the entire department was amazed by her. Tae-sung found himself changing his schedule to have evening walks with Hiram, long dinners together, and weekend trips to the city's parks. She was slowly adjusting to human culture, though she never lost the things that made her lichen. The way she smelled the air when she was uncertain, the expressive movements of her ears and tail, the low growl in her voice when she was passionate about something. He learned about her people's ways, the importance of pack bonds, the honor codes that ruled their society, the spiritual beliefs about the hunt beyond where honored dead ran forever under silver moons. In return, he shared human culture. He introduced her to earth music, taught her to like coffee, which she first found offensively bitter, but slowly learned to enjoy, and explained the confusing array of human social rules. Why do humans ask how are you when they do not really want to know? Hirim asked one evening as they walked along the river. It is confusing. Are they being polite or lying? It is a greeting, not a real question, Tae-sung explained. Like a verbal way of acknowledging the other person exists. That is inefficient. Like and greetings exchange real information. We smell each other to assess health and emotional state. Well, humans generally do not like strangers sniffing them. Hirim's laugh was rich and full, making people smile who at first tensed when they saw her. Your species is very strange, Tae-sung, says the woman who can literally turn into a giant wolf. I do not turn into anything. My combat form is simply my true self without restraint. This humanoid shape is the polite compromise. But her tone was teasing, her tail swishing playfully. These moments meant more to Tae-sung than he could say. For so long, his relationships had been shadowed by his trauma, by the ghost of the soldier he used to be. With Hirim, he was simply himself. She knew his scars, both physical and emotional, and accepted them without judgment. One evening, about 6 weeks after they met, Hirim invited him to her new apartment. It was a modest place provided by the Terraform Corps, but it was hers. She had decorated it with touches of her culture. Woven wall hangings showing star charts, a small shrine to the hunt beyond, and several pieces of lichen art with distinctive swirling patterns. I wanted to thank you properly, she said, pointing to a low table full of food. I prepared a traditional pack feast. Nothing fancy, but it is perfect, Tae-sung said, genuinely touched. They ate together, Hirim explaining what each dish meant. As the evening went on, the conversation grew deeper, more intimate. They talked about their losses, his fallen comrades, her dead mate, the lives they had left behind. Do you ever wish you could go back? Tae-sung asked. To before the war? Hirim was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. But then I think if the swarm had never come, I would never have left Lyra's Prime. Never come to Earth, never met you. She met his eyes across the table. And that future where we never met, that seems like a greater loss than everything else combined. Tae-sung's heart beat hard in his chest. Hirim, I know it is too soon, she said quickly. I know humans have different courtship customs, different time frames. But among my people we are direct, and I need you to know this. These weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. You see me, not as a refugee, not as an alien, not as a victim of war. You see me. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Tae-sung stood, moving around the table to kneel beside her. I see you because you are impossible to look away from. You are brilliant and strong and kind and so much more than you even realize. And yes, it is fast and maybe it is crazy, but I am falling in love with you. I think I started falling in love with you the moment you walked into that cafe. Hirim's breath caught. Truly? Truly. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. It was a lichen gesture of deep intimacy. Then I am the luckiest being in the galaxy, because I have been falling in love with you since you ordered me extra stew and treated me like a person instead of a problem. They stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing together. Then Hirim pulled back slightly, her expression turning playful. So by human courtship standards, what comes next? Tae-sung laughed. Usually, more dates, meeting each other's friends, and not everyone was happy about Tae-sung and Hirim's relationship. The first sign of trouble came 3 months after they started dating. Tae-sung brought Hirim to the monthly veterans gathering at the local hall. It was something he did every month since returning from the war. A chance to connect with others who understood what combat service meant. The reaction was mixed. Some veterans, especially those who had served in mixed species units, welcomed Hirim warmly. A woman named Soo-jin, who had lost an arm fighting alongside lichen soldiers, even hugged Hirim and started a lively conversation about pack tactics. But others were less accepting. A small group stood in the corner, muttering and shooting dark looks their way. Finally, one of them, a man named Kyung-ho, whom Tai-sung had always found unpleasant, walked over with obvious hostility. "You are bringing one of them here?" Kyung-ho demanded, his voice loud enough to make people look. "To a human veteran's space?" "Hee-rim is a veteran," Tai-sung said evenly, though his jaw clenched. "She fought at Lyros Prime, lost her packmate in combat. She is an alien. They are why we had to fight in the first place." "That is not true," Tai-sung started, but Hee-rim placed a hand on his arm. "It is all right," she said quietly. "I understand his anger. The war took much from all of us." "Do not speak for me, Wolf," Kyung-ho spat. "You and your kind should have stayed on your own worlds. We would not have lost so many if we had not been dragged into defending alien territory." Hee-rim's ears flattened, but her voice remained calm. "The swarm does not distinguish between human and Lycan territory. If they had taken Lyros Prime, they would have used our world's resources to build a fleet 10 times larger. They would have reached Earth within 5 years. Your third fleet did not save us out of charity. They saved us because it was strategically necessary. Convenient excuse. It is the truth that your own Admiral Park stated in his report." "I have read the documentation." Kyung-ho's face reddened. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate her. "You think you can come into our space and that is enough." Soo-jin appeared between them, her mechanical arm whirring softly. "Kyung-ho, back off. The lady has every right to be here, more right than you, given that you spent the war in a supply depot while she was on the front lines." "I served, you survived," Soo-jin corrected coldly. "There is a difference. Now either show some respect or leave." The confrontation ended, but the tension remained. Taesung and Hee-rim left early, walking back to his apartment in silence. "I am sorry," Hee-rim said finally. "I have caused you trouble with your people." "They are not my people. Not the ones who act like that." Taesung took her hand. "And you have nothing to apologize for. Kyung-ho has always been bitter. The war just gave him an excuse. Still, I do not wish to be a source of conflict in your life." Taesung stopped walking, turning to face her. "Hee-rim, listen to me. You are not a source of conflict. You are the best thing that has happened to me in years. If people cannot accept that, that is their problem, not ours." She studied his face, searching for doubt and finding none. "You are certain?" "Completely certain. The challenges did not end there. Over the following months, they faced discrimination in various forms. Restaurants that suddenly had no available tables. Transit officers who demanded to see Hee-rim's documentation repeatedly. Neighbors who complained about noise when she had been completely silent. Each incident chipped away at Hee-rim's carefully rebuilt confidence. Taesung watched her gradually withdraw, becoming quieter, more guarded. She started declining invitations to social events, preferring to stay home. Her ears, once so expressive, remained flat more often than not. It broke his heart. The breaking point came when Hee-rim's apartment building management gave her a warning about disturbing other tenants. The complaint was vague and unfounded, but the message was clear. She was not welcome. Taesung found her sitting on her apartment floor that evening, surrounded by her few possessions, her tail wrapped tightly around herself. He had learned this gesture meant deep distress. "I am tired," she said simply when he entered. "So tired of fighting just to exist, of being made to feel like my presence is an imposition." "I know." Taesung sat beside her, pulling her close. "I know, and I am sorry you have to deal with this. Sometimes I think Kyung-ho was right. Perhaps I should have stayed on the refugee world, among my own kind." "No." Taesung's voice was firm. "That is exactly what people like him want. For you to disappear, to stop existing in their comfortable space. Do not give them that satisfaction. But what is the alternative? To continue fighting every day for basic dignity? The alternative," Taesung said slowly, an idea forming, "is to stop fighting alone." Hee-rim looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Move in with me." She blinked, her ears perking up slightly. "Move in with you? My apartment is bigger, quieter building, and more importantly, it is mine. No landlord to issue arbitrary warnings." Taesung took her hands. "We are already together most evenings anyway. This just makes it official. And maybe it is time to stop pretending we are taking things slow. We both know what we want. And what is that? A life together, a future. You and me, facing whatever comes as a team." He smiled. "Is that not the Lycan way? When you find your pack, you commit fully." Hee-rim's expression transformed. Hope fought with fear. Among my people, such a commitment requires the pack bond ceremony. It is sacred, permanent. Then let's do it. Taesung, you do not understand what you are offering. A pack bond is not like human marriage. It is deeper, more fundamental. Once bonded, I will know your emotional state always. You will be part of my pack mind. She swallowed hard. And I will give you my combat name. My true self name. No one outside my birth pack knows that name. I am honored, Taesung said simply. And I want that, all of it. If you will have me. For a long moment, Hyrim simply stared at him, her golden eyes bright with tears. Then she threw her arms around him, burying her face in his shoulder, and wept. Great shaking sobs that shook her entire frame. Yes, she whispered between sobs. Yes, 1,000 times yes. You are my pack, my heart, my home. They held each other as evening turned to night, two scarred souls choosing each other despite the world's disapproval, despite the challenges ahead. It was not easy. It was not simple. But it was real, and it was theirs. The pack bond ceremony took place 2 weeks later in a small grove outside the city. Jiwoo served as the human witness, while Hyrim had invited 2 other Lycan refugees from the center, Sang-hee and Dongwoo, to represent her birth pack in spirit. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. Under the light of Earth's single moon, Hyrim shifted into her combat form for the first time in Taesung's presence. She was magnificent, nearly 9 feet of muscle and silver blue fur, her wolf features prominent but still distinctly humanoid. Her golden eyes glowed in the moonlight. This is my true self, she said, her voice deeper and more resonant in this form. I offer this self to you without reservation. I offer you my combat name. Hyrim, Silver Tracker of the Frost Moon Pack, daughter of Myung-hee and Jinwoo, sister to the fallen, survivor of the swarm. Taesung stepped forward without fear, placing his hand on her chest where he could feel the powerful beating of her heart. I accept your true self. I accept your name. I offer in return my own truth. Taesung of Earth, survivor of Proxima Ridge, broken and remade, seeking purpose in a changed world. I find that purpose in you. Following Hyrim's whispered instructions, he drew a small knife and cut his palm, then pressed it against hers. Their blood mingled, his red, hers silver touched, sealing the bond. The moment their blood touched, Taesung felt something shift in his consciousness. It was like gaining a new sense. He could feel Hyrim's emotions as a gentle presence in the back of his mind. Her joy, her love, her fierce protective instinct. It was overwhelming and beautiful and utterly right. I feel you, he whispered in awe. And I feel you, Hyrim replied, shifting back to her humanoid form. Now and always. We are pack-bound. You are mine and I am yours. Jiwoo, watching with tears streaming down her face, declared them bonded according to both human and Lycan custom. The small gathering celebrated with food and drink, telling stories late into the night. As they drove home in the early morning hours, Hyrim curled against Taesung in the passenger seat, her tail wrapped contentedly around his arm. I never thought I would find this again, she murmured. After losing my first mate, I believed that part of my life was over, that I would live alone until the hunt beyond claimed me. You are not alone anymore, Taesung said firmly. You never will be again. No, she agreed, her voice drowsy and content. We are pack now, forever. And for the first time since the war ended, Taesung felt complete. Not because his scars had healed. They never would, not entirely, but because he had found someone who understood those scars, who bore her own and who chose to walk beside him anyway. The first year of their pack-bonded life was an adjustment for both of them. Learning to live with another person, especially across species lines, required patience, compromise, and occasional creative problem-solving. Hyrim's Lycan habits sometimes clashed with human norms. She was naturally nocturnal, most energetic in the evening hours when Taesung was winding down. Her enhanced senses meant she could hear things through the apartment walls that drove her to distraction. Neighbors arguing 3 floors down, the electrical hum of appliances, the scurrying of mice in the walls, and then there was the shedding. During seasonal changes, Hyrim shed large amounts of fur, covering every surface in a fine layer of silver blue. I am sorry, she said for the 10th time one spring morning, watching Taesung vacuum for the 3rd time that week. Among my people, we have grooming packs who help with the seasonal shed. Here, I just make a mess. It is fine, Tae-sung assured her, though he had invested in a heavy-duty vacuum system. Besides, you put up with my nightmares. This is a small price to pay. The nightmares were less frequent now, softened by the pack bond. When they came, Hiram was there instantly, her presence in his mind a soothing anchor. She would hold him until the terror passed, never asking for explanations, simply offering comfort. We all have our ghosts, she would whisper. The pack carries them together. Work became a source of fulfillment for both of them. Hiram's star mapping project at the Terraform Core was expanding rapidly. Her techniques were revolutionizing how humans approached colony site selection. Jiwoo had even submitted several of Hiram's papers to prestigious journals, where they were causing considerable excitement in the xenocartography community. You are becoming famous, Tae-sung teased one evening, reading yet another article praising the groundbreaking work. Famous is uncomfortable, Hiram muttered, her ears flattening. I prefer to work quietly. Too late for that. Jiwoo says you are being invited to present at the Galactic Cartography Conference next month. Absolutely not. I do not do public speaking. You will be brilliant. I will terrify everyone. A 2-meter-tall wolf woman discussing gravitational theory? The audience will run. But she went to the conference and she was indeed brilliant. Tae-sung sat in the front row, bursting with pride as Hiram presented her research with clarity and passion. There were some nervous looks from the audience initially, but by the end of her presentation, they were asking eager questions and requesting collaborations. Afterward, several young researchers, human and alien alike, approached Hiram with admiration in their eyes. One young Lycan student newly arrived from the refugee world thanked her with tears streaming down her face. You show us that we can be more than refugees, the student said, that we can contribute, that we have value. That evening, Hiram cried in Tae-sung's arms, not from sadness but from overwhelming emotion. I never thought I could help my people this way, she sobbed. I thought I was just trying to survive, but maybe I can be a bridge. Show humans what Lycan can accomplish. Show Lycan that there is hope here. You already are that bridge, Tae-sung assured her. You have been that bridge since the day we met. Their personal life expanded too. Slowly, carefully, they built a chosen family around themselves. Jiwoo became a regular presence at their dinners along with Soo-jin and a handful of other veterans who had proven themselves true friends. Hiram's Lycan friends from the refugee center, Sang-hee and Dongwoo, visited often. They eventually pack-bonded to each other in a smaller ceremony. The apartment filled with life and laughter, with mixed traditions and hybrid customs. They celebrated both human and Lycan holidays, adapting rituals to fit their blended household. Earth's single moon became sacred to Tae-sung as well, and he learned the old Lycan songs that Hiram would howl during full moon nights. Not everything was perfect. They still encountered discrimination, still faced suspicious looks and occasionally outright hostility. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. One particularly difficult day, about 18 months into their bond, Tae-sung came home to find Hiram in her combat form, curled into a tight ball on their bed. Through the bond, he felt her distress, sharp and painful. What happened? He asked gently, sitting beside her and stroking her fur. I was denied access to the university library today, she said, her voice muffled. The security officer said my kind were not allowed in without special permits. I tried to explain that I am a registered researcher, that I have full credentials, but she shuddered. He called me a beast, said I should be in a zoo, not a library. Rage flooded through Tae-sung, white-hot and fierce. Did you get his name? It does not matter. It absolutely matters. That is harassment, discrimination. It is illegal. Tae-sung, please, I am tired of fighting. Sometimes I just... She trailed off, her ears flat against her skull. He understood what she was not saying. Sometimes the constant battle to be seen as a person became exhausting. Sometimes you just wanted to exist without having to prove your right to do so. Okay, he said softly, No fighting tonight, but tomorrow I am filing a complaint with the university, and we are going to that library together, and you are going to get the materials you need, because you belong there. You belong everywhere you want to be. Hirim shifted back to her humanoid form and curled against him. Through the bond he felt her gratitude, her love, and the gradual easing of her distress. "What did I do to deserve you?" she whispered. "You showed up to a blind date in rags, and gave me a reason to care about something again," Tae-sung replied. "I think I got the better end of this deal." She laughed softly, and the sound filled him with warmth. The years passed. They bought a small house outside the city, with enough land for Hirim to run freely in her combat form without startling neighbors. They adopted a pack of rescue animals, creatures from various worlds that had been displaced by the war, creating a truly interspecies household. Hirim's career flourished. She became the first Lycan to receive a tenured position at a human university, teaching xenocartography to a new generation of students. Her papers were required reading in the field. Young Lycan refugees started arriving at their door, asking for mentorship, for hope, for proof that they too could build lives here. She gave them all of that and more. Tae-sung, meanwhile, found his own path forward. Inspired by Hirim's resilience, he started a support organization for disabled veterans and refugees, creating bridges between communities that had too often remained separate. The work was challenging but deeply meaningful. It helped others find the same hope he had found with Hirim. On their 5th anniversary of being pack-bonded, they stood together in their backyard under Earth's moon. Fuller now in Tae-sung's understanding, more meaningful for the traditions Hirim had taught him. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Coming to that blind date? Choosing this difficult path?" Hirim turned to him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Never, not for a single moment. You are my pack, my heart, my home. Everything that came before led me to you. How could I regret that? Even the hard parts, the discrimination, the struggles, even those, because we face them together. Because you see me, truly see me, every single day. That is worth any struggle." She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "When I walked into that cafe 5 years ago, I was broken, lost. I had given up on happiness. And then you." She smiled, her expression soft with love. "And then you ordered me extra stew and treated me like I mattered. You gave me back my life, Tae-sung. How could I ever regret that?" Tae-sung pulled her close, feeling the dual sensation of her physical presence and her emotional state through their bond. Contentment, love, and a fierce, protective joy. "You gave me mine back too," he murmured. "I was just surviving before you, going through the motions. You made me want to live again, to build something, to believe that the future could be good." They stood together in the moonlight, two scarred souls who had found each other against all odds, who had chosen each other despite a world that often told them not to, who had built something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. Around them, their adopted pack settled into their various sleeping spots, a Trevallian bird, 2 earth cats, and a small reptilian creature from a world whose name Tae-sung could never pronounce. Inside the house, the lights glowed warm and welcoming. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, but also new joys. But tonight, they simply stood together under the moon, pack-bonded and whole, exactly where they belonged. The neighborhood had changed over the years. More interspecies families had moved in, drawn by the quiet area and the acceptance that Tae-sung and Hirim had fought to establish. Their house had become a sort of unofficial community center, a place where different species could gather without judgment. Every Sunday evening, they hosted what they called integration dinners. Human veterans, Lycan refugees, Trevallian merchants, and various other species would gather around their large table, sharing food and stories. It started with just Jiwoo and a few friends, but had grown into something much larger. "You have built something special here," Sang-hee said one evening, watching the diverse crowd with wonder. She and Dongwoo had become regular attendees, and they often brought new refugees who needed to see that integration was possible. "We just opened our door," Hirim said modestly. "People did the rest. But it was more than that, and everyone knew it. Taesung and HFY had created a space where being different was not just tolerated, but celebrated. Where a lichen could shift into combat form without causing panic. Where veterans could talk about their trauma without being treated as broken. Where refugees could speak their native languages and practice their customs without shame. Taesung's support organization had grown too. What started as a small group meeting in their living room had expanded into a full nonprofit with staff and office space. They helped disabled veterans find employment, assisted refugees with integration challenges, and advocated for policy changes at the local and national level. The work was not always easy. There were still people like Young Ho, still institutions that resisted change, still laws that needed to be rewritten, but every small victory felt monumental. Every person they helped was a testament to what was possible when you refused to accept the status quo. One autumn afternoon, a young human veteran named Bo-ram came to their office. He had lost both legs in the same battle where Taesung lost one. He sat in his wheelchair, his face hollow with despair. "I do not know how to live like this," he said quietly. "Everyone looks at me like I am broken, like I am less than I was." Taesung sat down across from him, understanding that feeling deep in his bones. "You are not broken. You are changed. There is a difference. It does not feel different. I know. I felt the same way for years." Taesung gestured to his prosthetic leg. "But then I met someone who saw past the injury to the person I still was, who reminded me that my value was not in my physical wholeness, but in who I chose to be." "How did you find that person?" "Blind date, actually." She showed up in rags, a refugee from a war-torn world, belonging to a species most humans feared, and she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Taesung smiled, not because of how she looked, but because of her strength, her refusal to be defined by her losses. Bo-ram looked skeptical. "So I just need to find the right person?" "No. You need to start by being the right person for yourself. The rest follows." Taesung leaned forward. "Let me ask you something. What did you love to do before the war?" "I was a musician. I played the piano. Can you still play?" "I have not tried." "I assume nothing. We have adaptive equipment programs. We can get you a modified setup. Or maybe you discover a new instrument. Or maybe you find that music is no longer your path and you discover something entirely different." Taesung's voice was firm but kind. "The point is, you get to choose. Your injuries do not define you unless you let them." Bo-ram left that day with a list of resources and a glimmer of hope in his eyes. 3 months later, he returned to thank them. He had started playing again, using adaptive equipment, and was even teaching other disabled veterans. He looked transformed, alive in a way he had not been before. "You saved my life," he told Taesung. "No, you saved your own life. I just pointed you in the right direction." These moments happened more and more frequently. People whose lives had been changed by the work Taesung and HFY were doing. It was not just about employment or housing or legal rights, though those things were important. It was about dignity, about being seen, about having a community that valued you. HFY's academic work continued to break new ground. Her research team had expanded to include scientists from a dozen different species, all working together to revolutionize stellar cartography. The techniques she pioneered were now being used throughout the Galactic Union, making colony site selection faster, safer, and more efficient. But what she was most proud of was her mentorship program. Every semester she took on 3 lichen students, giving them the guidance and support she had lacked when she first arrived. She taught them not just the technical skills they needed, but how to navigate a human-dominated academic world, how to stand tall despite prejudice, how to turn their unique perspectives into strengths. "You are changing the galaxy," one of her colleagues told her after a particularly successful research presentation. "I am just doing my job," HFY replied. "No, you are doing much more than that. You are showing everyone that collaboration across species boundaries makes us all stronger. That diversity is not a weakness to be tolerated, but a strength to be cultivated." On their 10th anniversary of being pack-bonded, Taesung planned a special surprise. He had contacted the Terraform Corps and arranged a trip to one of the new colony worlds that had been selected using HFY's mapping techniques. "We are going where?" HFY asked, staring at the tickets in disbelief. "Nova Lyros, the new lichen settlement world. I thought you might want to see what your work has made possible. Hiram's eyes filled with tears. Taesung, that is. I do not even know what to say. Say yes. Say you will take a week off and come explore a new world with me. Yes. Absolutely yes. The trip to Nova Lyros was transformative. The planet was beautiful, with ice-covered mountains and vast frozen seas that reminded Hiram of her birth world. But more than that, it was thriving. Thousands of Lycan refugees had settled there, building new communities, raising pups, living lives free from fear. They were greeted as heroes. The colonists had heard of Hiram's work, knew that her stellar mapping had made this settlement possible. Children followed her through the streets, asking questions, touching her fur with wonder. Adults thanked her with tears in their eyes, showing her their homes, their businesses, their future. You gave us this, the colony leader said, a grizzled old warrior named Minjai. You gave us hope when we had none. You proved that we could be more than refugees, more than victims. You showed us the way forward. I just did the math, Hiram said, overwhelmed. I calculated gravitational fields and migration patterns. No, you did much more than that. Minjai placed his hand over his heart in the traditional gesture. You carried the memory of our people forward. You honored those we lost by building something for those who remain. That is the greatest gift you could give us. That night, Taesung and Hiram stood on a hill overlooking the colony. 3 moons hung in the sky, larger and brighter than Earth's single moon. Hiram shifted into her combat form and howled, a long, mournful sound that was picked up by other Lycan throughout the colony. Soon hundreds of voices joined hers, creating a chorus that echoed across the frozen landscape. It was a song of mourning for those lost, a song of gratitude for survival, a song of hope for the future. When the howling finally faded, Hiram shifted back and turned to Taesung. Thank you for bringing me here, for giving me this moment. You earned this moment, Taesung said. Every bit of it. They returned to Earth renewed, energized, ready to continue their work with even greater purpose. The years continued to pass, bringing new challenges and new triumphs. Their chosen family grew larger. More interspecies couples formed, inspired by their example. Laws changed, slowly but surely, making integration easier for those who came after. On their 20th anniversary, they hosted a massive celebration. Their house and yard were packed with people from dozens of species. Veterans and refugees, students and colleagues, friends old and new. Jiwoo gave a speech that made everyone cry. Sujin told embarrassing stories that made everyone laugh. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Taesung and Hiram found themselves alone in their backyard once more. The same spot where they had stood on so many previous anniversaries. 20 years, Hiram mused. It feels like a lifetime and also like no time at all. Do you remember that first night? Taesung asked. When you walked into that cafe in rags? I remember being terrified, expecting rejection, planning to leave as soon as I could. I remember thinking you were the most interesting person I had ever seen, and being angry that the world had treated you so badly. We have come a long way since then. We have, and we still have farther to go. Taesung took her hand. There are still refugees struggling, still veterans without support, still people facing discrimination. The work is never done. No, Hiram agreed. But we do not face it alone anymore.